16, I went to Montgomery, where Martin Luther King had just come to Dexter Avenue Baptist Church as a preacher, as the pastor of Dexter Avenue. But my good friend, William Curtis Dobbins, was the pastor of St. Paul Methodist Church, which was in Montgomery. You remember Dobbins, John. He was the pastor of St. Paul, and the parsonages were next door to each other. That is, the parsonage of Dexter Avenue and the parsonage. Parsonage means the place where the preacher lives. In case you all didn't know that word. So they were next door to each other, and I went down to Montgomery to preach for Dobbins for Youth Sunday. And so he met me at the bus station, and we went to his house, and he said, well, you know, there's a new preacher who's just come to Montgomery. I think you would like him. He went to Boston University, and he has a PhD from Boston University in systematic theology and philosophy of religion. I'm going to take you over so you can meet him. So we went over. He went to the parsonage of Dexter Avenue, and Coretta Scott King came to the door. And she said, oh, Reverend Dobbins, you're looking for Martin. He said, yes, I have a friend here from Gadsden, Alabama, and I want him to meet your husband. So she said, oh, he's not here. She said, I think he's probably in the rec room over at Alabama State College, which is not very far. You could walk to Alabama State from the parsonage there. So if you go to the rec, you'll probably find him there. So Reverend Dobbins and I went over to Alabama State to the rec room, and sure enough, the jukebox was going, and there was a fella. Y'all know what a jukebox is? I know y'all got other kinds of things now, but see, we had jukebox in our day. The jukebox was going, and I looked over, and there was a fellow draped over the jukebox, and he was listening to If I Don't Love Your Baby, Grits Ain't Groceries, Eggs Ain't Poultry, and Mona Lisa Was a Man. If I don't love your baby, grits ain't groceries, eggs ain't poultry, and Mona Lisa was a man. Well, now, I had just started preaching, you know. And up in North Alabama, where I came from, folk were pretty puritanical. You know what I mean by puritanical? Yeah, all right. We didn't listen to stuff like that, you know, supposedly. But there he was, listening to this jukebox. If I don't love your baby, grits ain't groceries, eggs ain't poultry, and Mona Lisa was a man. And Dr. Dobbins said, well, that's Dr. King. Really? Really? He looked at my face, and he could tell I was already making judgment about him, see. Well, when the jukebox finished and his record was ended, Reverend Dobbins introduced me, and he began a lecture using Shakespeare and Randall Niebuhr and Paul Tillich, and quoting poets and philosophers, a lecture on If I Don't Love Your Baby, Grits Ain't Groceries, Eggs Ain't Poultry, and Mona Lisa Was a Man. And I said, anybody who can lecture on that and make me believe, I'm willing to follow him wherever he's going. And so I made a decision right there that this was my leader. And he was my leader until that gun felled him in the mountains of Memphis, Tennessee. Tell you one other story quickly. I went back after I finished Boston University School of Theology, where he had gone. I studied with those same men that I talked about a minute ago that he studied with. And went back to Anniston, Alabama, to work with Nimrod Reynolds at 17th Street Baptist Church, my good friend, my closest friend in the world now, and to lead the civil rights movement with the Calhoun County Improvement Association. I was executive secretary of the Calhoun County Improvement Association. Nimrod was the president. We worked to try to change Anniston, Alabama, Calhoun County. I was beaten along with Reverend Reynolds on the steps of the public library in Anniston, Alabama, just trying to check out a book. Public library September 15, 1963, the same Sunday afternoon, those little girls died in 16th Street Baptist Church that Sunday morning. They beat Reverend Reynolds and me. Guns, knives, chain, sticks. We escaped with our lives beaten. Martin came to Anniston shortly after that. We had a civil rights rally where he spoke and Ralph spoke, Ralph Abernathy spoke. And then we got in Reverend Reynolds' car to drive to Birmingham to open the conference, National Conference of Southern Christian Leadership Conference in Birmingham at A.G. Gaston Motel. Nimrod had just bought a new car. Now you have to understand, y'all know what a Bonneville is? You remember that? We're talking about 1963. You remember that boxy, great big boxy Bonneville? Well, Reverend Reynolds bought one of those. Not only did he buy one of those boxy, great big boxy Bonnevilles, but it was loud orange. And you couldn't miss it. Well, anyway, Dr. King came and spoke that evening. And Ralph Abernathy and Reverend Reynolds and, what is his name, John? His lieutenant who died. See, that's what happens when you get old and forgetful. A little short. Bernard Lee. Bernard Lee. So that we got in Reverend Reynolds' orange Bonneville, see, to go to Birmingham, drive to Birmingham, which is about 60 miles from Anniston. So Reverend Reynolds was driving, and Bernard was sitting in the passenger seat in the front, and I sat on the left side, Martin was in the middle, and Ralph was on the other side. We got in the car, headed down Highway 1 from Anniston to Birmingham, on our way to Birmingham to open SCLC's conference. Now, in the excitement of Dr. King coming and Ralph Abernathy and Bernard Lee and all these people coming, Reverend Reynolds forgot to fill the car with gas. So we got this great big new Bonneville, orange Bonneville, headed down Route 1. Now, you have to understand, Route 1 was a lonely, desolate, no lights, dangerous highway for black folk at night. And it's Sunday night. And 5 preachers, black preachers, in a boxy, loud orange Bonneville. Except it gives out a gas right in front of a man's gas station called Mr. Adams. Adams was head of the White Citizens Council of Alabama. And there was a great big sign on all of Adams gas stations: "We do not serve gas to niggers." Where do you think we gave out of gas? Right in front, as life would have it, right in front of Mr. Adams' gas station. Martin had a great sense of humor. Thank God he was human. So he said to Ralph, "Ralph, why don't you go in there Now you have to understand what Alabama was like on Sunday night in a white gas station with all these thugs and Ku Klux Klanners out in front of the gas station. You understand? Ralph, why don't you go in there and try to persuade Mr. Adams to give us some gas? Martin said, Ralph, why don't you go? If I go, the movement loses its leader. That's great sense of humor. In situations like that, you have to find a way to laugh because you know you're facing death, see? You know you're facing death. You knew that any minute all 5 of these black preachers could be killed right there in Reverend Reynolds' Orange, Bonneville. But finally, Martin got up, got out, and walked into that gas station. And as he walked, headed to that gas station, these white thugs just sort of surrounded him. But he went on through. We sat there. It was summertime, the windows were down in the car. We sat there and watched as Martin Luther King talked to Mr. Adams. We don't know, I don't know what Martin Luther King said to Mr. Adams. But I know after a little while, after what seemed like a long time, Mr. Adams came out leading Martin. And I won't use the language that he used. It would turn the room purple. But he told him to give us some gas. We got the gas, and we headed in Reverend Reynolds' Orange, Bonneville, to A.G. Gaston Motel in Birmingham. Not one of us said one word between Mr. Adams' gas station, and we pulled up into A.G. Gaston Motel in Birmingham. I asked Reverend Reynolds, I said, Nimrod, did you ever ask Martin what he said to Mr. Adams? He said, no, I didn't. I didn't either. I don't know what Martin Luther King said to Mr. Adams, but I know that I'm standing here tonight because Martin spoke some gospel word to Mr. Adams at that gas station that had the sign, we don't sell gas to niggers. Martin was somebody, folks. He was somebody. I miss him still. I miss him still. The nation misses him. But we can do something about it, can't we? We've named streets after him. We've named this library after him. We've named schools after him. We've named churches after him. But what we really need to do, folks, is to change America and to erase every vestige of bigotry and hate and poverty and exploitation of the poor in this nation. And we need to get the guns out of the hands of our people on the streets.